You see us?
Yep.
We're on?
Yep.
All right, later, buddy.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Sorry. I'm just
So
trying to
you
explain
going to help intro a little bit?
Yeah,
Let
so-
people know what's going on.
Hey everyone. Typically when we come on and we do these lives, we hang and chat with you guys and we answer a bunch of questions about our relationship, and as much as we really love doing that and enjoy doing that, just with everything that's going on right now in our country, it just didn't feel right to get on here and just chat about our relationship. So what we're going to do today is we are actually going to bring on a friend of ours. Her name is Angela Rye, and she's an amazing woman. She's an activist and a leader in the Black community, and we're gonna FaceTime her in, and she's going to we're gonna just talk. We're going to just listen to what she has to say. I know that both of us really are open to learning. We want to keep learning. We want to keep listening. We want to keep supporting. So we're gonna get her on here, and hopefully you guys will just open your hearts and open your ears and just really listen to what she has to say, and we can all learn something from this. So give us 1 second. I'm gonna get her on here, and then
Well said.
get started.
Well said.
Just waiting for her to call in.
Hey, thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
You guys don't have to be here. We're grateful that you want to tune in and be a part of our journey, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've actually also really enjoyed
Interactions.
these interactions. This is actually our last video. Our last live with you guys, but we've really enjoyed
For a little while.
For a little while, at least, yeah. Sorry, 1 second. Just trying to get her.
There she is.
Here she is. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
There we go.
Good.
We're
How are you all?
gonna
I'm
move
gonna
this
put this
so
here.
we can all see each other.
See.
There we go. And get her in here. There we
it
go.
is.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Turn it
beautiful.
This way a little bit more.
This is
Shift it.
this way.
No, twist it that way.
This way.
Yes,
Boom.
she's front and center.
There we go. Alrighty.
Hi, Angela.
Hi, you
How are
guys.
you?
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. We're so grateful to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. I know for you all, it's a courageous step, and I'll tell you, Hailey, you said, how are you doing? I'm exhausted. It has been a long day, and I think, especially for this week, for so many of us, we're reliving so many of the things that we've seen once before. So to lose someone this week named George Floyd, who died saying, "I can't breathe," like Eric Garner did, is immensely frustrating. And just a few weeks, or just a couple weeks ago, people learned about Ahmaud Arbery, who died jogging in his neighborhood. And of course, that was in February, but people just found out about it. Died like Trayvon Martin did in his neighborhood with the hoodie on, just walking to 7-Eleven. And so there are so many more. Breonna Taylor, we don't often talk about Black women who died due to police violence or vigilante violence. But there are so many more who we don't know about because they didn't go viral, because there wasn't a video, because there wasn't an influencer talking about their death. And so I think that this is so important for us to learn how to stand in solidarity, because you all know, as we're talking right now, there are uprisings in Atlanta and in the DC area and in Denver, and of course in Minneapolis, where this has all happened. So It's a lot going on. I don't know if I said, do I need to say my name? I'm Angela Rye. I don't know if you all said that before I came on. So, but I'm so glad to be sitting with you all to try to figure out how we come up with solutions, right, to really lift up the work of the people doing this every day on the ground and trying to make life better for all of us.
I love that. And like you said, Hailey and I mean, we want to do is whatever we can to learn and to know just what we can do. Is there anything any suggestions to people like Hailey and I?
Yeah, and I think a really good place to start, just for full disclosure, we talked a little bit on the phone earlier, and what I thought was a good conversation. And one of the things that I was saying is, this is one of those moments where you don't necessarily want to talk about, what it's like being Black or what it's like to be profiled or any of those things. But what is inspiring to me is being able to talk about, what white privilege is, what allyship looks like, what it means to stand in solidarity. Because the reality of it is, so many of us have protested, have tweeted, have posted, have recorded videos that we hope would prick the conscience of a nation, and that hasn't worked, because if it did, we wouldn't be here today. And so we do need to rely on folks like you who are like, okay, I want to learn, what do I need to do? And so one of the things I would ask you all is, when you think about white privilege, which I think is really the foundation of this, what do you all think white privilege is from your vantage points? And there is no wrong answer, and nobody's going to get shamed for not knowing, because I think, again, this is a learning exercise, which means it's a safe space. So what do you all think white privilege is?
You want to start? You want to start?
I mean, obviously, I think from what I know and what I've seen is, first and foremost, just people getting treated differently, getting ahead of other people faster because of the color of their skin, because they're white. I don't know if that makes sense or if that's at all correct to say that, it's very obvious and blatant that, even when you're traveling in airports, in different places, I feel like people get, what's the word? Like they get profiled. Yes, exactly. I feel like it's so obvious when people get profiled, and then, it's just, to me, it's really blatant, and I know it probably goes way deeper than that, and that's why I think this conversation is so important, so that I could ask you to also explain, like, it does just go beyond getting treated differently because of the color of your skin, or, I made a post, I think it was yesterday, where I said, you even see it in the justice system, and when, a white woman gets arrested, or, a white teenager gets arrested, they don't have to fear for their life, ever. Right. Like, I would not fear for my life being pulled over. But I know that so many Black women and men and teenagers and children would be scared to death to get pulled over. And that's so wrong, and it's just, I just, again, I want to understand more, and I think there's a thing too where it's like people get nervous to say the wrong thing, and I think this conversation is so healthy because, like you said, it's not about saying the wrong thing. It's about, even if we do say the wrong thing, getting corrected in love and respect, and saying, I'm telling you this because we respect each other and I want you to understand. So, I never want to say the wrong thing or disrespect anybody, but that's why I believe we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. I don't like saying the wrong thing either. I think it comes from being a perfectionist. But I definitely don't like to say the wrong thing. But again, I hope that you all feel that I'm saying it's a safe space. And I don't know what the path forward is if we can't create these spaces where it's safe for me to express my anger, my frustration, safe for me to also teach and correct in love, but also safe for y'all to say, this is what I understand it to be. It might be wrong, it might be right, and we can go from there. But Hailey, I would say what you said is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And it shows up in a lot of different ways. And Justin, I don't know if you have something to add to that, but we can talk about that for a second too from your perspective.
Yeah, I just think I've never had to worry about fearing my life because of the color of my skin. And I've noticed that, I've been treated differently because I've never experienced being treated negatively because of the color of my skin ever. Not one time.
Mm-hmm. And white privilege, I think what is important to understand too is it's systemic. This country was founded on white privilege and white supremacy. It was founded on white people as being better than, greater than, knowing that they are superior to, at least from the framers' minds, anybody else. That is why people could come in, colonize, and steal land from indigenous people and really cause a genocide of indigenous people in this country. And then in addition to that, not only was there a genocide of indigenous people in this country and are stealing up their land, of course, black people were brought over here on slave ships, right? So brought in as what they call chattel property on slave ships. And from the very beginning, deemed as 3/5. We all can do fractions. I'm not great at math, but 3/5, not 5/5, 3/5 human being. So not even completely human, simply property. And so what you have in this country now are people who generationally have been taught in a superiority, with the superiority complex, have been taught that they are privileged because they are better than, have been taught that black people are inferior and therefore less than any person of color. And of course, there's a spectrum. And so what I think makes it increasingly more difficult, when I do speeches sometimes with young people, I ask them how many of them are afraid of the police. And most often when it's a room full of black folks, all the hands go up. And just like you said, Hailey, and you said, Justin, when it's an integrated room, a lot of white folks' hands don't go up. What people don't understand is that fear is literally imprinted on our DNA.
Yeah.
Like it really is, because the very beginning of law enforcement in this country was to capture fugitive slaves and return them to their masters.
Wow.
Right? So that was what police were for. That is exactly, so that you have to understand that with that mentality, as someone goes on to be in law enforcement, the system in law enforcement, so we're not talking about individual police being good or bad, the system was designed to capture fugitive slaves, which means inherently that person is wrong. Inherently, this person belongs to something else, and as a result, I'm going to treat them as such. So that's really the basis of profiling. Black people are inherently dangerous, criminal, and violent, is the mentality. And that's how people are operating, and that is why even when it wasn't a violent crime, people are, they shoot to kill. It is why laws like Stand Your Ground, which is what Trayvon's killer relied upon, that says, I'm going to protect my space when I feel unsafe. But we know that a feeling of being unsafe is a subjective feeling, meaning it's based on our experience. It's based on our biases. It's based on our prejudice, right? So those are the kinds of ideologies and the kinds of supremacy and the kinds of racism that we combat every single day. And it's heavy and it's a lot. And so when moments like this happen, with George Floyd, what we're thinking is like, how many more have to die? How many more hashtags? How many times do we have to say Black Lives Matter? And you all may have paid attention to this, but when Black Lives Matter started, which was right after the death of Trayvon, people would respond, White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. It had to be everybody else's life as if it was an argument, right? There shouldn't be any argument, but the argument comes from the idea that Black people are inferior, and it's inherent, right? It's even if you have a blind spot, you may see someone who you're like, oh, they look dangerous, and there have been hidden cameras for years where, like, you see a white woman walk across the street when a black man came, right? Just walking towards her, like, oh, it clutched the purse, right? It's those kinds of biases that have to be shed, because that kind of bias, especially when you're in positions of power, can result in someone's physical harm.
Can I ask you something? Can I say something?
Please. Yes.
I was actually having a conversation the other day with a friend of mine, and I was saying, you know, I do think so much of, at least in my own experience, you know, is education. And when you're raising, you know, we're two white people, we're gonna have white children, you know, and I believe that it's also a lot about educating your kids as they grow up and explaining to them why, you know, explaining to them, you know, what's going on and being really honest with them. And I remember we were staying with a friend of ours who is a pastor. He pastors a church, and he's his whole family, he's a white man and his kids are white. And remember when we were at Carl's and we all watched that movie together, STARZ. And at the end, I remember his kids were all in tears. Everyone was crying, and he sat them down for like 45 minutes and explained to them, you know, this is why we stand up for people. This is why we support them. This is why. And I thought that that was such a valuable moment, especially seeing a father teach their kids like that, because I can never remember a time, to be honest, where my parents ever sat me down and explained it to me like that. And I think that's so important as I get older and I understand things more and I'm learning so much more, that it has to start in your home. It has to start when you're a child, and it has to start understanding from, you know, when we're getting raised by our parents, we look up to them for everything. We learn everything from them. So what they don't teach us is what we don't learn. Would that be right to say?
I think that's absolutely right. And I think, you know, while we're talking about privilege, there's white privilege, but there's also layers of privilege for other people. I'm privileged because I was raised in a 2-parent household. I'm privileged because my parents taught me from the beginning that history books were going to lie to me about my culture. That they were going to start talking about slavery. There's going to be a paragraph this big, but let me tell you about the black kings and queens from the continent of Africa that you look like, that you be modeled after, that, you know, that did so much to advance global civilization. And I know that it was a point of privilege. I'm privileged because I was raised with a daddy with a bullhorn who had me at protests at 2, you know? and I think the greatest thing is, Hailey and Justin, is I grew up with a father